Welcome everybody to our Board of Education committee meeting for Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, in person here at the middle school cafeteria. Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood.
Present.
Ms. Ballard.
Present.
Mrs. Cole.
Present.
Mrs. Raper.
Present.
Mrs. Rarica.
Present.
All right, can I ask everyone to please stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of tonight's agenda. May I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda as written?
I'll motion. I'll second.
Any discussion? Anything that needs to be moved or changed? Ms. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood.
Yes.
Ms. Ballard.
Yes.
Mrs. Cole.
Yes.
Mrs. Raper.
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica.
Yes.
All right. Before we get into the discussion items, I just want to say it is nice to see everybody in person. And so just as a reminder, since we are in a bigger space, please remember to just talk a little bit louder since we're not staring into a computer screen. All right. With that, we're going to move on to item number 4, which is our discussion item. And this is a presentation about Norwood Middle School.
Yes, and Mr. Miller's joining us tonight, so we'll turn it over to you.
All right, perfect. So if you can't hear me, let me know. I'll work on speaking louder in the bigger space here. Thank you, Board President, members of the board. Thank you for giving me this time to speak a little bit about the happenings here at Norwood Middle School. I've definitely been asked to keep it short, and which I will certainly do to honor your time and to answer any questions that you have. But I will admit that that can be difficult and is difficult for me because there really are so many new and exciting things happening here at the middle school. So I have a little cheat sheet for myself. I have my watch, keep me on time. So I can answer your questions that you have. First off, Norwood Middle School certainly is recognizing the fact that it's Women's History Month. And we have examples of the leaders in the past and current leaders of women as examples for our young women and men, and as well as our Warrior Wall that are honoring our Norwood grads and their accomplishments. If you walk down there or if you walk through the halls and you happen to see that, you'll notice that there's a mirror that's in the middle. The idea being that as our kids read about those previous grads and they may see themselves in their shoes in the future, that they can be a success and they will be a success just like those that they see on the walls that came from Norwood. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the transition that VIEW had here to the middle school, making the middle school their home for the 2021 school year. I just have a couple words for that. Just how very successful and seamless that transition has been for our students and staff. And that has everything to do with our leadership at the board office, VIEW staff, in particular Mr. Yates, Miss Raylan Burton, as well as Miss Campbell. It's not uncommon at all for me walking through the hallways to hear one of the VIEW staff say that they don't want to leave here. And I take that as a compliment on behalf of the VIEW staff themselves, our middle school staff, as well as our administrative leadership all the way up. And we expect nothing less for the Williams transition as well to the middle school. It has just been, it's been a pleasant experience having the elementary students in our building. And I hope you hear some of the same things that I do and see. And we really do expect the same for Williams. And we're working closely with Mr. Gabbard and his staff to make that happen, which I'll speak a little bit more about that in a moment. The sixth grade transition certainly is something that might be on your minds. It's certainly on my mind, and something that we've been talking about and planning for ever since we've come back from Christmas break. So I've had the absolute pleasure to be able to work with a phenomenal group of teachers and support staff that want to be here in the middle school. And I want to stress that they want and they have chosen to be here in the middle school during the 6th grade transition. And that has been absolutely marvelous. We've been meeting, like I said, since Christmas. We meet on a weekly basis, and we've been doing some planning, and I can let you know at least where we're at this point and some of the things that we've worked out. We have a schedule that we are hoping, we believe will work for not only the high school, the middle school, as well as our 6th grade team coming up. So we had to we have a lot of considerations, quite honestly, with scheduling because of the times, the bells, the use of staff between the high school and middle school. So has been quite a bit to work out, and I'm pleased to say that I think we're very far along on that. So far along that I'm hoping that perhaps mid-April we should have a lot of that information out to parents and to students so that they can look at schedules and to a certain extent have a choice. One of the areas that we've been asked to look at in terms of middle school for 6th graders is giving them an option to choose a path, so to speak, to go in terms of music, art, or PE. Our music folks, Miss Marshall, Mr. Lockwood, and Mr. Robinson will be visiting our elementary buildings at the end of this month to introduce them to music, to the instruments, as well as there's been a parent and student night that's been arranged where they get to try the instruments, and that's at the end of March. So there'll be more to come in terms of that information for parents and for students as we get into March, as we come back from spring break. We're planning open houses as we get into May for parents and students to come up, to check out the building, to look at classrooms, to meet teachers, and to learn more about the programming itself, because we want them to become familiar, we want them to see the building, and not be the first time, obviously, when they come in the doors in the fall. Which we'll be working with Williams as well, so that's another consideration, is just as we did last fall with our VIEW parents and staff and students and gave them the opportunity to walk through the halls, we'll be coordinating that with Williams as well to give them the opportunity to do that, which was a good thing for parents and kids to see the classrooms. We'll be working on a transition camp for late July, early August. We want to make sure that we can capture as many students as we can in terms of 5th and 6th grade students to take them through, say, a week. You know, we have families that may take vacation into July, so we want to be able to capture them in August and vice versa. And so that's something that will be forthcoming in terms of dates and programming to introduce kids, and more along the lines of team building and introducing them to life in the middle school, what it might be like, and ease some of that transition piece for staff, or I should say students and their parents. 7th and 8th grade, career in tech. Briefly, we have had to revamp and revise our career tech courses to align with the state's expansion of career tech into middle school, which we've always had, or we've had for a number of years, a couple of career-oriented courses, but we've looked at them very closely and revamped them. We have an information technologies course and a career connections course, which, by the way, that might not be the names that they are, but what they will entail are project-based learning courses focusing on technology skills and soft skills. So we've met just last week, and even in the past fall, we've met with and we'll be partnering with 2 Norwood businesses, and perhaps more. Encore Technologies, I want to make sure I get that right. They're in the old MedPace building, if you're familiar with that. They're multi-million-dollar business, and they're just booming. There's an individual that works with them that we've been in conversation with for several years now, that we really have an opportunity to work with them and their employees to incorporate their area and expertise to help build skills for our students, as well as Shepherd Chemicals. So Encore Technologies is committed to donating Raspberry Pis for students to work in teams to learn about input and output systems. I can't tell you exactly what a Raspberry Pi is, but my understanding is it's a device that you can add lots of different peripherals to, and it's almost like a STEM type situation where students will be able to work in teams to create things using these Raspberry Pis. In addition to this, the course would use 3D printers as well as developing soft skills through entrepreneurial work that's being sponsored by Shepherd Chemicals. Shepherd Chemicals is graciously sponsoring the training of our teachers and ongoing PD. If you may have heard or not heard, Ms. Ronan introduced us to Shepherd Chemical, which we're familiar with. They've been in Norwood for a very long time. We had a number of staff that went to a training on youth entrepreneur program in the fall, and we were all quite excited about it. But as you know, with this school year being what it was, we had to make a lot of changes and cuts, so to speak, in terms of programming with the pandemic, with COVID pandemic. But we are looking to go full go this fall with the Young Entrepreneur Program. That aspect of it is really trying to not only to teach students entrepreneurial skills with developing a product, marketing a product, working in teams. It's really about soft skills and talking with a lot of the area businesses and members that come to talk to us. It's kids can learn skills of a trade. In a lot of ways, what's lacking are those soft skills, working in teams, working with other people. Even if you're working and building a program and you're working with somebody from California, you still have to talk to someone. And so the entrepreneurial program really emphasizes a lot of those practical skills that kids will use to set them up for success in the future. Almost there. So the third course that we're introducing, revising, is a pre-engineering course that focuses on STEM, engineering and design process, aerospace, and mechanical engineering. And that, again, is a project-based learning course. So lastly, just a couple announcements, just a couple shout-outs for the middle school, and certainly take any questions that you might have. As you may know or may have seen on Facebook, we have a virtual book fair this week, kicked off this week. 25% of those profits go back to the library. And I really wanted to recognize Miss Ashley Shelby, who's our library aide. She, along with many of the other library aides, have really stepped up this year with helping Kathy Strasser in the clinic. But she has really stood out this year, and I want to recognize her for the work that she's done, in addition to doing what she needed to do for us, for our kids, for our community. She still is doing everything she can to work and do librarian type stuff. She's had thousands of dollars of books donated from lots of different publishers. She's coordinated a virtual library, so to speak. She takes books to the kids. So I really just wanted to recognize her very quickly and thank her for that. And yes, again, the virtual book fair going on this week. Please help support that and check it out. And lastly, the Junior Achievement Virtual Career Fair, which is going on now through May 9th. Kids can get on a self-guided Career Fair Expo, which our teachers are encouraging kids to log on when they can. They can do it from home with parents as well. It makes it hard now at the moment with the COVID. So we're working with Junior Achievement, and we were one of the few middle schools that were chosen in the area to participate in this, as well as, and lastly, a live virtual career fair, which will be March 16th, 11 to 2. That's a Tuesday, I believe, but we will make sure that we get that information out to all of our kids, even those that are, say, a B-Day student, so they can still log in and participate in that. So we're trying to find ways to continue to do the work that we've always done, but just differently. So that's all I have at the moment. If you have any questions, I'm open.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Would you be able to get those dates for the book fair and the career fair over to our wonderful lady there in the corner who makes our wonderful posts that we can share it with our community and get that support out, especially for the book fair.
Miss Edwards is awesome. She has already posted our book fair on the Facebook.
Then for that career fair, then definitely.
But for the career fair, I can certainly get that information to her.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Not a problem.
I do have a question. Are we going to do National Junior Honor Society inductions this year?
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
That could have been a bullet, but it wasn't. So perhaps we're hoping by the end of this week, we'll get that information out to the families and the students for them to, because we want to do what we were going to do for our students that were involved last year. And so we'll do a community-based project for those students, for those that had applied last year, and we'll honor that certainly. And we should have that, again, like I said, out by the end of the week to families for kids to apply for National Junior Honor Society.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Well, Mr. Miller, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item on our agenda is our Education Committee, and I'd like to turn this over to Board Member Mrs. Rayleigh.
Okay, so item 5.01 is a contract from Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services. So this is a contract for the 2021-2022 school year for services from them. And then item 5.02 is a field trip request for the Silhouettes to Loveland High School on March the 27th for Silhouette Camp.
All right, does anybody have any questions about these two items? So, from what I know, the Hamilton County Developmental Disabilities contract, this is just standard, something that we do every year. Okay. All right. No other questions? We will move right along to item number 6 on our agenda, which is personnel. Superintendent Ronan.
Thank you, President Atwood. The first item is, everyone knows that there's been, the long-term cost of lost schooling, considering the situation the past year with the pandemic. So we have been meeting with teachers, now that our youngsters are coming back full-time, to see what we can do for remediation and recovery, looking at summer school, but also after-school programming. And we have a group of teachers from the middle school and high school, all the elementary teachers. Right now, I just have the first group that has signed up, and Christina, a lot of work to do, and our staff is willing to work on a plan to make sure our students catch up. So that's the first group. That is part A. Number 2, athletics. Adam Robinson is our boys varsity tennis coach this spring. And then their number 3, we're having our school spring play, which will be outside. And we have 3 teachers who are doing costume, stage management, and drama. That concludes the employment piece.
All right. Any discussion with any of those items?
Where will the performance venue be for the play?
I believe since it's midsummer, Night Dream, they're going to be moving about on the campus.
Okay.
That's my understanding. That way they can have parents come. It can be an outside venue. That's what I was told. That's all the detail I have, but it sounded pretty creative and exciting.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we saw the Shakespeare Company came and did it outside in Upper Millcrest Park, or that one particular was at another one, Norwood. But it was great outside. So I bet it'll be super cute.
So I'm excited. I thought that was a great idea.
All right, next item on our agenda is the Building and Grounds Committee report. And I'll turn this over to Board Member Mrs. Cole.
So we have 2 requests this month. The first one is from Norwood Knothole. So they're requesting Shea Stadium on Saturday, April the 10th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And as you know, this is something that we've been doing for quite some time with Knothole. And the second one is Inner Cincinnati Soccer Academy, and this is headed up by Dan Luking, who's obviously one of our middle school teachers and soccer coaches for varsity. And he is requesting Shea Stadium for practices and games at, this is March 1st to June 1st. And this is a nonprofit soccer organization that provides kids of Norwood an opportunity to play competitive club soccer at a cheaper price than club soccer usually is. So we will have kids from Norwood as well as kids from outside of Norwood to fill these teams. And there will be 3 boys teams ranging from 11 to 17 years old.
All right. So I have a question with the soccer thing. So with most youth sports programs, generally that's kind of handled outside the realm of the school district. I know they use their facilities, but maybe this is a question I'll have to ask Mr. Luking himself. But are we like sponsoring this as a district? So this is just something that Mr. Luking is taking on his own to kind of start. I think it's fantastic, and I probably have no issue with it either way. I just wasn't sure.
It's just a facility request is the only part that we're involved in.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. Any other questions? No? All right. And now we'll move on to the Finance Committee report. And I'd like to turn this over to our treasurer, Mrs. Campos.
Thank you, Mr. President. February was a better month fiscally for the general fund than many of these past few months, and better than last February also. We received about $430,000 more in revenues than the prior February. This month of higher revenues was welcome as we've been quite low compared to prior years. In fact, even with the higher month, we're still down about $1 million compared to last year's revenues. I do expect revenues to catch up this next quarter. In addition, we've seen savings on the budget side of almost $300,000 year to date. On the agenda, the CFO report is attached along with other fiscal reports. The change order listings are attached for your review and approval next week. Well, I wanted to mention just real fast a little about our high school phase 2 project. So I'm going to go backwards on that. It is out to bid, the high school phase 2 project. Our bid opening for March 11th will be delayed due to another large public school project competing for HVAC contractors on the same date. So in our best interest, we've moved our bid opening to March 18th, which is also our next board meeting. At this time, it is my plan to bring the bids and the notice to proceed to you for your review at the April board meeting. We're not going to rush it through this time. Okay, back to the agenda. So then 8.02 appropriation resolution is attached for your review and approval next week, which is our typical budget for the year. 8.03, change order 1 and 2. I'm sorry, I've got this typed wrong. 8.03 is a certificate of substantial completion for the high school. This substantial completion document will start our warranties for the high school phase 1. Remember that the ceilings will be finished in phase 2, which is out to bid now. So it's not going to look finished, but phase 1 is almost complete. 8.04, change orders 1 and 2 for Williams Avenue Elementary to add replacement windows to the Board of Education office. Number 1 is for the front elevation, which is the south, and number 2 is to add windows on the east side of the Board of Education building plus the connector. These are extremely large windows, so the price is high, but I would like you to remember that we denied the complete replacement of windows at the Board of Education office as they weren't all needed. But to be consistent for the front view, we are adding just the front and connector windows. We denied alternate number 5 from our Williams Avenue bid, and by accepting these 2 change orders, we will save over $244,000. Plus, we will maintain the historic appropriate appearance that we are looking for at Williams when it comes to the windows. 8.05, donations are avenues for success. Kroger donation is $1,366. Thank you to all of our parents and supporters that have selected Norwood schools as your community rewards partner. We appreciate your dedication. 8.06, a new account, ESSER2. You are approving the fund creation, the grant revenues, and the appropriations for our new federal grant for pandemic spending. This money can be spent from March of 2020 to August of 2023. So this is the second round of federal stimulus money that the school district will be receiving to help us with pandemic spending. And finally, 8.07, the BSN Reward Program Agreement. This agreement defines the discounts we will get for our athletic uniforms and the applicable rebates we will get back from BSN for the next 5 years starting July 1, 2021. Is there any questions on finance?
So on the second round of federal funding for pandemic spending, has that money already been earmarked?
We have, we've already spent about $1 million on SR1. And so we know some of those costs are going to continue for the next 2 years for SR2. Then of that, we're going to spend $1 million on our high school phase 2 renovation. We're allowed to use some of that money on making your airflow better, higher
Correct.
quality airflow. So we'll
Yeah.
use that for some of our HVAC changes at the high school.
Okay.
And then we have a lot of plans on remediation for our students' education.
Okay.
So,
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? So the other question that I have relates to item 8.07, which is the BSN Sports Reward Program Agreement. So does this lock us into only using Nike apparel for uniforms?
well, it's not that it locks us in, it defines our rebates that we get back. The more we spend, the more rebates we get back.
Okay.
So, I read through it and I didn't see anything in it that said that we had to buy with them.
Right.
But I don't think there's a lot of uniform companies out there that, it seems like when I talked to Alex, he said BSN was where most schools went anyway.
Okay.
But he did ask for quotes and got 2 really nice quotes, and BSN was far better in their rebates for us.
Okay. All right, perfect. Any other questions? Nope, that was the last item on the committee discussion. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn that meeting.
I'll second.
All right, and we're going to move into our special meeting immediately following this. So we have a motion and a second. Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Miss Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Raber?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
All right, so the committee meeting has been adjourned, and now we're going to move over, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our special board meeting for Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. The Norwood City School District Board of Education follows a bi-monthly meeting schedule. First meeting of the month is called our committee meeting. At this meeting, we fully discuss our agenda for the board meeting to be held the third Thursday of each month. As board members, we encourage you to attend, watch, and listen our committee discussion, which results in actions at the board meetings. For full disclosure, our committee meetings and board meetings are always announced, video and audio taped, as well as posted to our webpage for your view. All of our meetings are public and visitors are welcome. I will say that none of the items that we discussed 5 minutes ago in our committee meeting are being voted on at this special board meeting. So these are totally separate topics. Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood?
Present.
Miss Ballard?
Present.
Mrs. Cole?
Present.
Mrs. Raber?
Present.
Mrs. Rarica?
Present.
All right. Item 1.03 is the adoption of the agenda. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the special meeting agenda as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the agenda items? Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Miss Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Raber?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
All right. Item number 2 on our agenda is employment, and I'd like to hand this over to Superintendent Ronan.
Thank you, President Atwood. The first item is Roger Kipp, our food service director, has given our 2 weeks' notice and will be leaving us on March 19th. So to replace him in the interim, 2.02 is appointing Kenny Stacy as the interim food service director and giving him a stipend each month to fulfill the duties through the end of the school year. So that's what those two items are. And they do need to be voted on because this is happening it's happening pretty quickly.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion that we accept the resignation for Mr. Kipp, and then also accept and approve the stipend for Mr. Stacy.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I don't think Roger should leave us, but I don't blame him.
He did get a wonderful
situation.
Yeah,
I just gotta say publicly, no. I don't want it.
We love Roger, and I'd like to say thank you for all the work, all the dedication that he has put in to the district, to the children, to their health and nutritional wellness, to the education of our children in that aspect, and I wish him nothing but the best.
He told me he got a job offer he couldn't refuse.
It's true.
Not
It's
an
very
offer,
nice, and they're gonna let him have a garden.
Oh, wow, I bet he's excited
Yeah, he's
about
super
that.
excited about it.
Yeah.
Our loss.
All right. Any other discussion? Mrs. Camphouse, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Raber?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
I'm gonna vote no, just out of my stubbornness.
That's fine.
But I want Kenny to get the stipend.
Okay. With that, 4-1, it passes. And we'll move on to item number 3 on our agenda. This is the Finance Committee, and I'd like to hand this over to Mrs. Camphouse.
Okay, so we are in the process of searching for some administrators, and we realized that we did not, our board policy was not adequate to reimburse any cost for those administrators that we pull in to interview. So this resolution will make it so that we are allowed to reimburse potential staff for their costs coming to the district to interview. Would you like me to read the whole thing, or
Is
there
anybody
anything else?
interested in reading and hearing the whole resolution?
it is attached?
So the issue that we ran into in the process of searching for our new athletic director, we received a number of quality applicants from out of the state. And so in conversation with Mrs. Ronan and Mrs. Camphouse, I discovered that if one of those candidates is somebody that we really want to bring in and have an in-person conversation with, we can't buy a plane ticket for them to get here, right? Or we can't reimburse them to drive hundreds of miles to get here. And it's just really not up with today's standards. And so to kind of keep us up with the times, and in the future, if we ever have to do a nationwide search for any other candidates, this just kind of lays the framework and the groundwork to make it easier in the future. That's why this is before us today. And since we're actively in the middle of the search right now, that's why this is a special board meeting request, just to have this done and take this off of our plate instead of having this as just part of our regular meeting schedule.
And I'd just like to add, to make sure that people are aware, this isn't a blank check for, first class travel and everything. There is a stipend limit, and we have an understanding of mileage and who this would apply to. So it's very clear of when and how to use it, and we are very budget-minded when this could potentially be used.
And this does not cover relocation, so we are not offering relocation for these positions. This is simply for the interview process.
Allowing us, because it's poor form, like you want to have somebody interview for you, like you want to hire them, and then say, oh, by the way, you got to pay your own way to get here so we can determine if we like you or not. I mean, That's not proper form.
Yeah, I feel like a relocation stipend would be something that would be a potential negotiation bullet point if that person were to be invited and they would negotiate that.
In their employment contract, correct.
Right.
Yeah. That's not to say
We
that
would
any
approve
of
that.
that's going to happen.
Right.
This
We just need it to be allowed to
Right.
happen.
We need it to be allowed to happen
Right.
if it's going to happen.
That's right.
So, all right, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution to change board policy.
I'll second.
Any discussion on this? Mrs. Campos, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Raper?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 4 in our special board meeting agenda, and that is executive session. With that, I would like to make a motion that we enter into executive session in accordance with ORC 121.22G1, which is the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual. May I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion on entering executive session? Mrs. Campos, please call the roll.
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Mrs. Raper?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
It is 6:37, and we are now in executive session.